Sup, y'all? I'm gonna say this before I do anything else going into this. I don't know why exactly, but this feels different to me. Today's felt like it's a very important big day, bigger than what I understand right now. You know what's kind of ironic about that is the title of this episode 169 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, is What You Don't Know. That's the episode title, and I'm gonna just make it clear, going into this, I feel like it's big. I feel like this one specifically, for some reason, is extra big, and today in this time period, and where I'm at with In the Image Clothing Company, and where yeah, that's a big thing. So my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, and this is, what I said. This is what I said. So we'll do something here on Little Red the guitar, and then we'll get into getting into the rest of this. I feel like to a degree it wouldn't be me without doing a thing at the end like that where it's not the best. I don't know. I mean, you take something so beautiful, it seems like it's just about perfectly played, and then at the end of it, let's mess up on purpose. Because we look at life as a surface, the surface of the earth that we all are placed upon, and now we're on this earth together, weathering a storm or two. It's stormy, dude. Looking across the waves, trying to be safe from some things that we don't understand. But we can't stand on our own 2 feet to do it. The movement that we need is a movement towards somebody who can help us do it. I've been doing some things. I've been moving, and please, don't try to say that I ain't been moving a thing when you're looking at the things that I've been doing, and you don't gotta believe. Apparent truth is apparent when you put your eyes on it, like a parent to a toddler who is growing. And I've been sowing some seeds, and lately things are changing, please. I know that things like the leaves always seem to fall back down again, and I was under the ground. Mostly. I felt like I was going in a direction that I should have been going, and then I lost myself, and I turned back around again. I said, Father, I feel so topsy-turvy. Please stop me and turn me around. Bring me back. Drop my feet on the solid ground. I was so sky high that I was out of my mind. I didn't know what was going on, but I was trying so darn hard to do the things that I thought that I needed to do, but going in the wrong direction to do the things that I was doing. And I just needed to come back home to the place that I was already at. As a matter of fact, that's how simple it is. It's simple, kids, and it's simple like this. We're in this, though, all right? Episode, like I said, 169 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. My name is Evan Strong. I'm the founder, man, of In the Image Clothing Company. This episode's title, like I said, I know I already said these things at the beginning, but what you don't know. And I'll get into it in a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about it, but a lot of it is this idea of ignorance. And it's not a bad thing to be ignorant, meaning that you don't know something. But that's a lot of where this is coming from, is what you don't know, you can't be held accountable for. And I've said this before, on In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and where I have, but we're going to dive into it a little bit here, and I'll hit it from different angles. And that's what it says in Scripture, is we can't be held accountable for things we don't know. And often we're sinning without knowing it. We're judging without knowing who the person is, but maybe we don't know that we're even judging. You see what I mean? Sometimes we don't know what our own behaviors are, but we're doing them. And sometimes we just don't know better. In life, we're just raised by different people. And a lot of times we weren't really given that great of an introduction into life, into social norms, social cues. And we're not here to try to be the norm, but a lot of people just kind of were dealt a hand of less of an introduction to life than other people. I'm one of those people in a lot of ways. Kind of was raised by wolves, if you will. I just really was, without trying to talk bad about anyone or anything. Just speaking in the situation as it was. My childhood was a little bit crazy. But this goes for everybody and anybody. I'll hit it like I say, from a lot of different sides of explaining, just times when we don't know things, and you know how what we don't know kind of gets us into trouble as well. Even though we can't be held accountable for it, a lot of times we get ourselves in places that we would ideally not get into if we had known better. But then lessons that come from it, right? So we'll get into it. I'll do it as I do. We'll talk about each of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. We'll talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll really get into this discussion as deep as we do. All right? Check this out. Yeah. Dreaming of castles in the sky, falling from heights I cannot dive. Anyway, that's the intro to my song, This Road. And then it goes on, trying to find my way on this road, feeling like I run out of time. I'm trying to find my way on this road, but slowing down never crossed my mind. Anyway, and then it goes on, into another verse and some other things too, Trying to find my way on this road, feeling like I'm completely lost. Trying to find my way on this road, but I don't ever take the time to stop. Anyway, it goes something like that, but then, you can play it through the whole thing if you do. Or if you're me, sometimes I just do what I do and it doesn't really matter. Trying to stick around a structure or something? Unorthodox or untraditional, brother. What's up? It's like a fishing hole. You never know what you're going to get. The same song that I played before that I wrote. And maybe I play it just about a different way almost every single time, I play it, yeah, I just, I'm a freestyle kind of guy. I mean, all the stuff that I did throughout this, besides a little bit of, that I have written, I just freestyle stuff, right? So, writing is what I don't do all that often. But you give me freestyle and I might not be stopping. No joke. So anyway, four sides to In the Image Clothing Company. In the Image Clothing Company's main side is one of them. Oh, shoot. Shoot. You get me playing music, man. Sloppy though, right? I understand. Oh, shoot. Yeah. I've said this before, but Little Red the guitar is not the ideal setup. He's designed with, the intention to have steel strings on him. He's got nylon strings because I'm Evan Strong and I do crazy things with nylon strings. I'm really good, but this is not the ideal setup. Little Johnson JG 610R 3/4 size. And I've done some modifications in the ways that I have to. I've discussed it, past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But yeah, let's talk about each of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company, man. Like I'm saying, I'm in a different place with this, man, in such a good way. This time period's a big thing. I went to the shelter today. We'll get to it. We'll get to the intro where we do, but the dog shelter, right? The animal shelter. They've got cats and all sorts of animals that they have. They have other animals as well. But I filmed a video, and what I titled it is actually the importance of intentional collars. And I put it on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, which is one of our fourths. And we'll talk about it when when I get to the intro in this, if I do, right? That's funny because sometimes, storage space cuts me off. Blunt, bold, raw, and real, man, In the Image Clothing Company style. But I was hanging out with this poodle mix. I think he's a golden doodle. And he's a big boy, beautiful, standard size, the size we like, right? We specialize in standard size, purebred poodles. Let's start there. 1/4 of In the Image Clothing Company. That's what we do, and we let dogs stay natural. We talk about hydration for dogs, feeding of dogs, interacting with dogs as owners so our bodies don't get altered, Small dogs are harder to get down to than a tall dog. We have events, poodle parade events. You can bring your poodles that are purebred or poodles that are mixes of any size of either here to the state of Utah, the United States of America, and we'll hang out. We'll just have it be kind of like a family reunion, but I'll give information where I do on what we do, letting dogs stay natural. And we breed poodles properly and register them and advocate for doing these things, being a good owner of a dog and how to, keeping collars and leashes, harnesses of dogs centered and on them correct. We teach how to interact with dogs, not only the sizing of dogs, but things like holding leashes so our bodies don't get altered and damaged. Because what we do on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, another one of our fourths, is allow the human body to work. Right? The same thing as letting dogs stay natural, but then we mesh the owner and the dog together when we have a dog and we're the owner of it. And so I filmed this video today at the shelter, and I this dog that was there, he had a collar on him, and I filmed the video, and in part of the video, the collar was on him, and I was just showing how his body can work and how it's restricted from the collar. And then I took his collar off, and I filmed him some more, and then I put his collar back on. I did that, 2-3 times, give or take, on and off each, about 2 times at least, with it on and with it off, as far as like, showing this dude, this beautiful golden doodle. I'm almost certain that's what he was. And, I was talking about just all that we talk about with collars of dogs. Like human being collars, we keep collars centered. That's a video that we have under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, keeping collars centered. We've got musculature and tendons going through the center of our tops and our neck. And dog collars are so much more imbalanced usually than human being collars, and heavier, thicker, bulkier. So it was cool. I got to hang out with the dog and take him out while he's there waiting to be adopted. People can come and just volunteer to take the dogs outside, hang out with them. I've done that quite a few times at this shelter. It's actually the South Utah Valley Animal Shelter here in Utah, yeah. Anyway, just pretty cool, man. So that's a lot of what we do on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, and we'll always have good products for dogs, under InTheImageClothingCompany.com. But then we've got another fourth of us, In the Image Clothing Company, the main side. We allow the body to work. That's our slogan. Allowing the human body to work is what we do. We do it through clothing. The human body has a center line. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw, stabilizing the entire body, not just the head, but the jaw with its musculature stemming at the lower jawbone and coming up between the eye and the ear to the crown of the head on both sides. It stabilizes our whole body. And we have to keep our body's center line atop Earth's center of gravity. But then we place clothing on us, and clothing has imbalances where it does. We can have oversized clothing, damaging our bodies, ropes introduced to the body with shoelaces and drawstrings, rotating the body and getting us into these chronic patternings and scar tissue. That's how we word it. All this damage that happens to our bodies trying to work around things placed on them for years, decades, maybe almost an entire lifetime, So we get out of these chronic patternings and scar tissue. We show how to. I give a lot of discussion on the anatomy of the human body and just how it works, and then a lot of free modifications in clothing. And then we'll always have good clothing because it has to stay centered, fit correct, where I'll discuss here in a minute when I talk about where clothing sits, and be made from 100% natural materials. That's how our clothing has to be. Our bodies are only natural, and that's the goal for all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. Natural. And natural, neutral, and normal are all synonyms within the human being. There's a neutral position to every joint, like straight out the forearm and out the end of the pinky finger is that neutral wrist. And there's just motion outside of that. There's motion to the body in many ways. We get into it in depth, but yeah, there is. And so, musculature, it only contracts. Stretch within clothing is new, just decades old as of today's date, which, by the way, is the 15th of October, 2025. If I didn't say that at the beginning. Our muscles only get shorter to work. They only contract, and stretch in clothing goes the opposite direction, and it's just new. So we have a lot of things in our modern man-made right-handed world, 85% give or take of human beings are right-handed, that's really just altering our bodies and getting us stuck on our right side, kind of. We get into it, external rotation on the right side. There's rotations to the body. I just, I won't cut myself off, I guess. I know that I speak a lot in the intros, but that's the point of saying them is so you know who we are. But there are internal rotations and external rotations to things like the hands up to the shoulders, or just the hand up to the elbow and the forearm alone. And then the feet up to the hips, or just the feet up to the knee in the lower leg alone. And we've just got neutrals that the body has to reside in. And so we can't stretch our bodies because they're just a neutral. You stretch too far to one direction outside of the neutral, and then you've gone too far from the other direction from the neutral. There's just a neutral. And if we allow our bodies to work, they'll just work. There's nothing else we can do. There's no way to train the human being. As I say, it's just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. Everything only has its function, and it has a role to play, and so there you go, all right? Check us out, brother. Good clothing, always on InTheImageClothingCompany.com. As of today's date, not yet, but stick around for it. We do a lot. So, In the Image Clothing Company podcast, that's this, right? That's where we are, episode 169. We have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. We're all human beings placed on the same earth. We all were designed by and have only one true God, Jesus Christ, the creator of all things, who we are designed in the image of. There's our company name, right? The three first words, In the Image Clothing Company. So that's the whole thing about allowing the body to work and letting dogs stay natural is we didn't design these things, right? Like the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast title. We didn't design it, we can't decide it, but we can learn how these things work and how to allow them to, all right? So, yeah, that's a lot of what we do here. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in anything. In fact, I have an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast I've filmed titled, You Do Not Need to Believe in God. Yikes. But with context, truth is truth. God is there whether you believe that he is or if you don't believe in anything. And I say it, and I know it's kind of weird and sounds contradictory, but I don't believe in anything yet. My whole company here, if we're calling it mine, right? But is about what could be perceived as a religion. So we get into it, all right? Just deep insights on life. We've got another fourth of us in the Image Clothing Company music. A lot of what I do is show the sizing and setup of guitar, so we don't alter things like the neutral wrist, like the natural rounding to our hands. And that comes from our fingernails, just in every aspect in life. We need good fingernails, by the way. Something I didn't really know growing up. Sometimes my fingernails were cut all sorts of different lengths. They need to be fully supporting the tips of our fingers, ideally cut relatively flat on the tips, so that we can stay in that neutral wrist position and our fingers don't roll around and we just lose our natural strength. Round the corners so they're not sharp, but same with the toenails. Fully supporting the fingers and toes is what those nails are there for, given to us by God. But yeah, those hand arches, as I say, correlating with the arches in our feet, we show how to not alter our bodies from our hands up to our shoulders throughout our whole bodies through guitar setups. And I make a lot of music. I do lyricism, off the top rhythm and poetry, spoken word type rap. Metronome madness is what I call that when I just freestyle lyricism. And, I gear this stuff around the gospel of Jesus Christ. I sing, I play guitar, and we just do what we do through music, man. So check it out, all right? Episode 32 of Metronome Madness is actually what I filmed today, as well as that other video. And then now here I am filming an episode of InTheImageClothingCompany Podcast, right? So we're at a good place with this right now, time period-wise. I'm really grateful for where this is. So, clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age or any part of the earth, any time period to ever be, you're just a human being. Okay, no matter who you are, your clothing has to sit where your pants are entirely above your hips at what's called the natural waist. That's below those lowest ribs, but yeah, entirely above the hip bones, where we bend side to side at the spine. We can't bend side to side at our hips because they're connected to the ground with leg bones, but the spine does bend side to side. And then with our pants at their correct natural waist location, we have the angle of our waistband slightly higher in the front than the rear because that's just how we keep our body neutral atop Earth's gravity. We keep our core muscles and our hamstrings and our arches and our feet gripping, all these functions of the body just working, activated as a whole, the only way the human body can ever work. Okay, we talk about drawstrings though, how drawstrings affect body mechanics. I show the slipped lap knot. Then we've got a horizontal waistband. I tie the tail end to the center of the body. Yeah, we give a lot of information, man, like a lot. There's hundreds of videos on the main site of In The Image Clothing Company where, we just discuss things that are universal, eternal, unchanging truths. So it's pretty big, seriously. So just so you know who we are, that's what I mean when I said I know that the intros are pretty packed full of information, but this applies to every human being on the face of the earth forever. So, so there you go. The tops that we wear have seams on top of our shoulders, and they need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders because our shoulders mechanically just connect to our body behind our head, and our shoulders will follow our shoulder seams. The edges of our tops have seams as well. And we need those seams as close as we can get right to the edge of our shoulder. It's a joint of material as well as a joint of the body at the shoulder. Okay? The upper arm bone and the clavicle and the scapula. We have two things we call prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company. Firstly, ropes. That's all shoelaces are. We titled them shoelaces. We have a name for it, but it's just a weave of a rope. And we've got tendons, ligaments, muscles, and bones in the feet, gripping arches inward, keeping us vertical on Earth's gravity by opposing the center line of our bodies, right? Musculature just connects to the center line. From the shoulders to the center at the sternum in the front, on both sides, from the shoulders to the center in the spine, on the rear of the body on both sides. And so, In The Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, just so you can find it, is what we title the only way you can actually weave a rope across the top of your feet without altering how they work. And then we tie shoes as well, just to keep them on. We tie shoes evenly. On both sides, we tie the knots over toward the center line of the body because there's two sides to the body. 24-year-old Evan Strong learned that a couple of years ago. I was tying shoes uneven and my whole body was being rotated. Tying drawstrings uneven, my whole body was being rotated. Wearing oversized clothing, my body was being pulled down on. Yeah, man. Lots of stuff, and then all the little minute things that really, really, really affect the body as well that we get into, free modifications in all sorts of ways. So check us out. But secondly, to shoelacing, we remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag's placed in clothing, it's either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. And then the body's trying to do compensation, but they can't compensate when everything, like I said, has to work together. It's got to work together. It's got to work together, brother. You can't drag around dead weight. Everything's got to have, functionality to it. So check this out. What you don't know. Check out what you don't know. Let me tell you. Let me sit on my high horse and up here on my soapbox. Let me just sit in my big old king chair and tell you how I know everything and you don't, right? Yeah, what you don't know is this, No, that's not what this is about, because that's the whole thing is what you don't know is what you cannot be held accountable for. sometimes we're doing a lot in life. We're in here, by the way. We're through the intro. I know that it is relatively long, and there's reasons as to why, right? I'm in this for life. Evan Strong, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We'll be doing so much with poodles. We'll be doing so much with people, and it'll be huge. And so, these are numbered. They'll live on forever. The information's here. So sometimes it's long, so I can really just document it here. I'm not saying it will always be this long, the intros. And that's what I am saying right now, is maybe it won't. But I'm documenting it now, and it'll live on forever. Under the gift of video. I don't know, dude. I start flying through minor chords and I just throw the tempo out the window. That's why we call it metronome madness, brother. All right, so here we go. There's a lot of things in life we just don't know. And, well, it says in scripture, we can't be held accountable for what we don't know. I know I said that, and I said it like 3 times in this at least. I know, because I know the magnitude of this. I know a lot of people across the earth, and they don't think they're doing things wrong. And they don't even know what it means to be doing something wrong. People are judgmental, and they don't realize they're judgmental. People are doing things to damage their body, and they don't even realize they're damaging their body. People are being not so great of a friend to someone in ways where they don't have any intention to be mean to this person. They love this person, but they don't maybe have the best understanding of how to really treat someone. And in cases like this, when we just don't know what's going on, well, what you don't know, you can't be held accountable for. And what that means, being held accountable, is like, you shouldn't do something, and you do it anyway. And then now you have to suffer the consequences, and it's on you. It's your fault. And that sounds harsh, but truly, if you knew you weren't supposed to do it, and you did it anyway, deliberately, if you will, then yeah, that's entirely on you, if you will, right? It's your thing to have to deal with and have to take accountability for. But the things that we don't know in life often, get us into trouble. They get us into trouble. We judge people too quick without knowing who they were, but maybe we don't really know not to judge people because maybe we grew up around people who just either judged people. Almost always, there's some people who are just so judgmental, and that's just how they are. Everyone can improve if they're willing, but some people, their entire life, stay pretty much the exact same. That's the case. And, that can be the case, is we've seen people that are so judgmental around us, and so we kind of just act out of that behavior because it's what we've seen and maybe just about all we know. But then other times as well, sometimes we just grew up with people that have a certain view toward something specific because they don't know anything about it. It's like me trying to have an opinion on Africa, and I've never been. And in modern day, we have television and movies, and boy, do I love them. It's funny, I was talking to my friend. I just got back from Institute, our weeknight Sunday school class, if you will, okay? That's what it is. I've talked about it before. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was talking to him, I told him, I used to have a bad view, a negative view on television, TV, I didn't watch it, but then now I actually love it. I've actually spent a lot of time in the past year watching a lot of television. For the first time in my life. I've never done that before. Never. I haven't. I mean, yeah. I don't want that to be so cut and dry. I mean, there's times in my life when I've watched television to a degree, but I've never watched it the way that I do now, at all. And it's kind of funny, it's like, I mean, that in itself goes along with this title. It's, what you don't know is that there's so many TV shows out there, television shows. Because what I'm watching is things like nature, documentary shows, veterinarian shows, wildlife rehabilitation and rescue. Like I've mentioned, past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, recent ones, I'm literally doing research on the health of dogs and watching in the veterinarian shows, dogs being born and what it looks like to have a C-section, a cesarean birth, through surgery, and then dogs have natural births, and doing a lot of seriously research for what we do, letting dogs stay natural, and all the breeding that we'll be a part of under in the Image Clothing Company Poodles breeding program for our purebred standard poodles. You know, fill out an application if you'd like, right? There will always be an application, a strict screening process on who the puppies go to, because we're trying to get them to be in a home for life whenever they go to wherever they go after they're born. And you don't know a lot of the time, maybe, that there's a lot of beautiful television shows out there, meaning I didn't. I grew up with a household of people. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, the television that got watched was just some pretty terrible worldly television. And I didn't like television for that reason. But there's these beautiful shows where, I didn't really know this. Not really. I mean, I didn't fully know that there was such beautiful television out there. So many beautiful shows people have produced and movies people have produced. And so I had a negative view on television because I thought it was only what I had seen it as. Basically at least. And I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the way that people in my life spent time watching what they watched. And it was disgusting and very inappropriate and a lot of just really, really bad television, That's crazy. I'm going to set Red the guitar down because we're going to get really real here. I can feel. We do it as we do, That's one of the 4 things: blunt, bold, raw, and real in the Image Clothing Company. But, man, we can't have an opinion on something because of what we've seen in the past. And that's kind of what I was starting into this with when I was saying we've grown up with people who, have done things a certain way. And so we kind of think that things either have to be that way or there's no other way to do them, And, well, what you don't know is that a lot of people across the earth do things entirely different than you. That's what I'm saying is, yeah, through television, I can watch things on the continent of Africa. It's intriguing. I love deserts. I live in a desert here in Utah, the United States of America. This state is a desert. The state of Utah. I love deserts, And I really like Africa. But I've never been there. And so, what I don't know about Africa, the continent, I could have all these judgments about that I've heard from other people, maybe, that could or couldn't be even truths. Maybe they're just having opinions on it. And I could have all these judgments towards what I think Africa is, but what I don't know is the fullness of what it really is. Because I've never been there. As of now, I'll probably never be going to Africa in my life. I just, I'm not much of a traveler. That's a pretty good distance from here. That's, that's me though, man. There's a lot of things, man, where we don't know things, and so we can make assumptions, and what you don't know is maybe something that you have a view on that's not really all that great of a view. Is, maybe that thing is not at all what you think it is. And what you don't know in a lot of cases is that might be the best thing in your life. It might be the thing that you just love more than anything else in your life. Like, you know what I mean, man? Sometimes we're looking at people and we kind of judge them. And we don't even realize we are judging them. And that's the whole thing, is what you don't know is you're judging them. You might just think you're living your life, but really maybe you're being very judgmental and you're just unaware of it. But you're not trying to be mean and do it intentionally, so you can't actually be held accountable for it. But at the same time, you judging this person, you kind of don't give them the time of day. But let's say what you don't know is this person's actually someone who a few months or years down the road becomes your absolute best friend. But, you just kind of had to learn what you didn't previously know. See what I mean? And so that's the hard part about it, is what you don't know can really get you in trouble. Not only what you don't know about somebody can make it so that you don't really even find out who they are, but also what you don't know about how you're treating somebody can cause you to actually really treat people terribly, and you're ignorant to it. You're unaware of it. You're oblivious to the fact that you're being really mean, actually, truly, and you have no intention to. But you're doing it with your actions, with your, views and judgments and looks, and your words toward them, your opinions on them. I mean, you view them in a way that you view them if you're just not looking at them as they are. Maybe you don't know that you're even doing it. There's a lot of things in life like this where we just don't know. And it's interesting because we can't be held accountable for what we don't know. But doing things out of ignorance, meaning just not knowing, meaning out of things that we don't know, we're still having actions in ways that we're having actions as human beings. And these things can really get us in trouble, really cause us to do things and, hurt people in ways that we didn't even know we were doing. And that's why it's weird, because it's on both ends. And that's how a lot of things in life are, they're kind of two-sided. Where we can't just say, well, what you don't know, you can't be held accountable for, and also there's no consequence, period. No, but what you don't know, you can't be held accountable for, but it can also really, really change your life. Maybe in a good way, and maybe in a not so great way. Seriously. Truly. And, man, a lot of what this is time. Time is such a concept, and it's truly a concept. God is not governed by time. God is eternal, right? One Eternal Round is an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. The Day That Never Comes, if that's what it's titled exactly, is an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And that's tomorrow, by the way. It never comes. We're only always now. And God is ever present. There's no such thing as tomorrow for God, and there's no such thing as time really for God. He's outside of space and time. He's the creator of all things, including those two. So a lot of things in life take time, and that's a big thing with stuff that we don't know in life. We can only know by time. I've had this idea of this actually yesterday. I was walking to Institute. I went to Institute yesterday as well. I've been going 2 nights a week lately, for the past quite a few months at least. And, well, things can only take the amount of time that they have to take. Our bodies can only heal as fast as our bodies can heal. There's only a certain degree of anything we could possibly do to try to speed up the amount of time they take to heal. You can only learn something as fast as you can learn something. What you don't know, you can only learn in a certain amount of time. It takes a certain amount of time, even if you're the most intelligent person on the earth, if you're the quickest learner on the earth, just the amount of time it takes for you to read something, to learn about it, the amount of time it takes for somebody to speak words, for you to hear them, to even know them, the information and the words they're saying, the amount of time that it takes to personally experience something, you can't rush experience. It can only happen as fast as it can happen. And so this is kind of how it is with everything that we just don't know is, well, what you don't know takes the amount of time that it takes for you to learn. There's no way that you can learn anything faster than you can learn something. Even if you have a photographic memory and you're the fastest reader on the earth, you still have to read it. You can't know it just because you're fast at reading without reading, even if it's a very quick speed. You know what I mean? Or listening to something, watching something, things just have to take the amount of time they have to take. And, shoot. What we don't know as human beings is time is not what's important. As far as trying to do all that we can in a short amount of time. But just letting things take the time that they take is what's important. And being okay with being patient is what's important. That's what God says is enduring to the end, you know. And what you don't know is often stuff that you will not know unless you can be relatively patient. You know, I mean, what you don't know about what's to come under In The Image Clothing Company, me speaking out of personal experience as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, Evan Strong, will only be something you can know as time comes. Because I know some things about how this will look, but it won't be manifested through the videos that we film until we film the videos. The information that I have that I just haven't given yet on things like allowing the body to work or letting dogs stay natural, or really how this will look and be structured as time goes on. I mean, I said that in this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast earlier. I said that the intros might not always be quite as long as they are now. And what you don't know, maybe, is why they are so long now if you don't know where this is really going, at least to the degree that I do as the one that's behind this as the founder. And so what you don't know can cause you to judge because we only know what we know. And so you might think, wow, this kid's really making this many videos. There are hundreds of videos on the main site of his In The Image Clothing Company. There's about 270 something videos there as of when I checked earlier today that I've personally made. And, you know, he has 169 episodes of what he calls In The Image Clothing Company podcast and very, very little viewership on them. Does he, I mean, what, is he crazy? Isn't the point of making this for people to listen? But again, what you don't know is maybe if you don't, then I'm in this for life. And like I say, these live on forever. And so even if there was not a single view on anything that I've made out of the hundreds and hundreds of videos I've made up until today's date, well, if one day all of a sudden they get a lot of views starting to be viewed, you know, a lot of people start to watch what I've made already, well, then what you didn't know at the time with the judgment was I don't care about the time period of when people start to see this because the truth is eternal regardless of when, you know, it starts to get broad spread as far as the viewership of In The Image Clothing Company. And if you look at what I'm doing here and say he's talking about poodles and standard size purebred ones, he says that as his company that he calls In The Image Clothing Company, and the fourth that is poodles, In The Image Clothing Company poodles, that it's always going to be a huge name in poodles, and he's telling us all these things he does with poodles, yet he doesn't have a single poodle himself as of any of these videos up until, well, today, right? The 15th of October, 2025. And so what you don't know, maybe, is I'm speaking on things to come. And maybe you know that, but what you don't know, maybe, is what it will even look like. And, well, it seems like you're kind of maybe preparing for something, but, you know, maybe you can't really tell at all what it is yet. That's fine. Just don't judge it. Because one day you can just see what it is when it is what I've been saying is to come. And so, what a lot of people don't know in life is that things take time. And that's one of those things you can only gain from experience, which takes time. See what I mean? And so, if you don't know that life is something you have to be patient with, then you'll be doing a lot of things in life that are actually really, you know, we don't like to focus on any kind of negative, but just calling a spade, calling it as it is, really negatively affecting you. The things you do that you try to do quick and fast to get done, when really the truth is good things take time. And that's something a lot of people don't know. And again, it's one of those things that you might just not be aware of because of your upbringing. Maybe you've just been raised by people who just rush through everything and you're not really so satisfied with how their life looks and they aren't either, which is funny. that that's the case when that happens. And often those people just don't change. This is what's funny about it when they have the ability to, right? We're given the gift from God to choose, and we can choose to change when we know that things aren't working. But that's the whole thing about it is what you don't know if, and I know that I've had people in my life kind of call me crazy for what I've been doing under In the Image Clothing Company, and it hasn't taken off in the way that they think it should by now. And they've been like, you're kind of a little bit insane. You're kind of crazy. You're doing the same thing over and over again, and nothing seems to be changing. But this was months ago, and now it's undisputed. I mean, you can see, like I say, my physical body, my actual face and head structure, the way my body mechanically works, stands and sits, and the rotations and what you could call posture. And then I discuss things in such depth on in the ways that I do. There's no dispute to it now, but I know, especially at the beginning, people were like, "Are you crazy, dude? You've been making these videos for months, and they didn't see much change in anything at all." But what they didn't know, caused them to actually say a really rude, mean comment that actually kind of like came back to bite them, back to bite, an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But now, if those same people look at me, it's like, oh wow, you're very different. You've grown a lot. Okay, and I can see now that it's through what you were saying, and I just didn't understand at the beginning because what you didn't know caused you to make a judgment call, caused you to actually be judgmental toward me, and you weren't even trying to. Maybe, but you didn't understand. You were ignorant. No, that's not an insult. I know often people hear that and they think it's an insult. No, the word ignorance, I've mentioned this, in recent episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It just means a lack of knowledge, not knowing something. A lot of things in life I'm ignorant to, and that's not a problem. There's a lot of things that I will always be entirely ignorant to in this life because there's too much in life to learn by the end of it. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. But if we're judging people and making a call on who somebody is or what we think somebody's really doing without actually knowing, right? Well, then what you don't know is this is a lot bigger than what you thought. And also, coupled with what I was saying a minute ago is, and that's a huge theme in this and just in life, what you may not know, right? What you don't know, if you don't, is that things take time. You can't build an empire overnight. You can't start a movement and have it be really big overnight. I mean, if it's going to last, if it's good, if it's real, you can't become the most knowledgeable person about one thing overnight. You can't become a professional in something overnight. But what you don't know is what's all going on behind the scenes if you don't know, right? It's like a professional sports player. And if you just look at them and think, wow, they just must be so naturally good at playing this sport. Well, if that's what you think, then what you don't know is they're up in the morning or they're up late at night researching, training drills for the sport, practicing what they do during the game, doing mental preparation, researching, all sorts of things, learning about it through personal experience, learning, if you will, muscle memory in the body. I say you can't train the human being, and you can't to do any function besides it's only functioning. It's just a mechanical machine. But as far as, operations in life, there's muscle memory, like riding a bike. You're not training your body to do something, but your body's just doing something. And you're training a memory of that thing that you just wouldn't otherwise do unless you were doing it. If that makes sense. Because I know I say you can't train the human body, and I'm not, let's use this word. I mean, I'm going to use it, but it just ties into this. I'm not ignorant to the fact that you can gain muscle mass, right? Hypertrophy, musculature will grow, muscle size will, get bigger if you, intentionally push it through its ranges of motion, and exert certain muscles. And I know you can learn things like I was saying, riding a bike or playing guitar, and that's muscle memory, but that's not training the body to do anything besides what it can already do. It's just working the body in a way that maybe it wasn't doing that exact thing before, and then it gets used to it. When I say you can't train the body, just for clarity, just so that people don't think that I'm ignorant to it, because I say it so bold, and I mean, you got to hear what I'm saying, not what you're hearing. That's what I say often under In the Image Clothing Company content. And that actually is exactly this discussion. That's not even a side comment, because what you don't know, if you don't, is what I'm really saying. If you think that I'm ignorant to the fact that you can like practice motion with the body, when I say you can't train the human being, I mean, you can't train your shoulders to sit in a certain location, what people would call good posture. There's only a neutral. Well, I have a video on the main site of In the Image Clothing Company titled The Natural Scapula Position. The big shoulder blades on our upper backs are the shoulders, and there's only a neutral. I'll show it here for those in visual plus audio, and then those in audio only. I'll kind of explain what I'm saying. There's a neutral to the shoulders, up and down, okay? And front to back, left to right with the contractions of the musculature, and then in all directions. And there's so much natural motion to the scapulas. I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about things. At least, I try not to speak on anything that I don't at least know quite deeply. But some things have to come with context because, yeah, same thing. Maybe you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Because I sit here and I talk about things under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and then I don't do as thorough of discussions on some of the things that I sort of just kind of quickly mention here. But then there's other places under In the Image Clothing Company. Usually what I am saying with things like that is the anatomy of the human body. And then I've got, videos where I have like an hour-long discussion on something like just the natural position of the scapula. And so what you don't know, if you hear just my quick comment on something and you think that I don't understand it well, is that I actually thoroughly explain, well, for this example, rather than saying a hypothetical, the neutral position or natural or normal, right? The synonyms are in the body, neutral, natural, normal, positions to the scapula and position, right? But yeah, you can't train the human body, yet you can do a lot to really enhance your ability to do movements the body can do, right? And then, yeah, through the nerve endings of the body, right? The sensory system of the human being, you can train into muscle memory. So, context. It's not a blanket statement when I say you can't train the human body. Just for context. That's why I'm saying it now, because I know that sometimes it's probably like, dude, what are you talking about? You can train your body. You can get better at physical movements. Oh, certainly, yes. I mean, I used to do flips, and I used to ride mountain bikes, and I used to skateboard, and, well, just so much athletics. I've played so much soccer. American soccer, right? But football for other parts of the earth, dude. I mean, I just I've done a lot of rollerblading, and I play music in ways and guitar, and I understand you can train things, in ways, but there's only one way that the body can mechanically function, in doing those other things, right? So anyway, you can think that's exactly what I'm saying. You can think that I just Well, what you don't know, let's say, is that I have a deeper understanding on things than when I just quickly brush past something like that. But behind the scenes, not that I'm hiding it, but just meaning, not openly saying it in every instance, I, really know things deeply, even when I just discuss them surface level. And this is the other thing. Well, I guess I'll wrap up what I was saying about the sports player. Is yeah, they'll be training and practicing the sport and researching and learning it, hours and hours a day, or at least a week, or whatever it is. Or maybe when they were young, they played so much, and maybe you see them playing one time and you think it's like their first time, and you're like, how is this person so good at this? What is going on? They're just naturally good, but they've had more practice doing the thing than a lot of people have even been alive, right? Time-wise. But what you don't know is the stuff you haven't seen. You see what I mean? And then you can kind of get in trouble because a lot of reasons, and a lot of what comes from these type of things that I'm explaining is judgmental type of things where we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. We don't wonder sometimes as human beings if there's more to something or someone than we know about them. And what you don't know is that this person might be smarter than you in this certain subject, but they just don't open their mouth about it. And you might look at them like you know everything about it, and you don't even know like half of what they know. And so you might be judgmental toward them, but they could, like talk circles around you about the subject, take you to school with the subject, if you will, just meaning they know way more than you do, but they just don't open their mouth about it. See what I mean? And this is how I am in life is I do a lot of speaking behind the camera of In the Image Clothing Company content because I'm here to give the content or to give the context, right? There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Yeah, there's an episode titled Context Over Content, right? And that's what I do is I give a lot of context. And I do a lot of speaking here. Well, this is a podcast, so for this fourth, In the Image Clothing Company podcast, yeah, I mean, that's what it is just words. That's what podcasts generally are, is just speaking. But in my personal life, I don't normally speak that much. I don't care to, and I don't care to try to sound smart. I definitely did that in times in my life, but I've learned um, that that's not what we need to be doing. It doesn't help anybody, especially not me, okay? The one doing it. Anyone who would be doing it, they could say me as far as, it doesn't help the individual trying to sound smart at all. It actually kind of digs you a hole, even if you are smart about something. But that's the whole thing about this is if you try to sound so smart about something around a group of people, well, maybe there's somebody there that's just not really saying anything, but they're looking at you like you don't know what you're talking about. And you just blabbering on about it, think you're so smart. And this is what I mean is it gets us in trouble, the things we don't know. You might look at that person who knows more about something than you, but hasn't said anything yet, and you might be like, you wouldn't know anything about this, but when you do this and then you explain it, and they're just looking at you like, I'll just let you tell me how you think it is, but they know it deeper than you. And this is how I am in life, usually. Well, not. I'm not trying to say usually in life I know more than everybody else. No, I am really smart, and I know a lot of things. But what I mean is, usually in life I don't say that much to the people around me, and I let people just kind of speak. You know. And so what this does a lot of time, well, really what that is, truly, I listen more than I speak. I listen. And that's how I've learned so much. That's how I am so smart. It's just the truth. I'm very smart. Hey, man, you don't got to take my word for nothing, but just listen to me speak. I speak very well. I understand life well. I give deep insights on life, I don't mean to mock it, but I also don't want to sound like I'm being prideful. But I'm saying it as it is. That's what I say I do. Because I do. I give deep insights on life under In the Image Clothing Company podcast and through the music we make and just all the information we give here. I'm the founder of this. I'm pretty darn smart. It's one of the gifts God gave me. But in my daily life, the reason why I'm saying that, other than I guess just to give context and to, also kind of to say it because it's a good thing to say what you're good at. I've spoken on stuff like this before on the Image Clothing Company podcast, but it's not okay, and it's actually damaging for us to shy away from saying we're good at the things that we're good at, because people need people to do the things that people can do well. And if somebody needs somebody to sit here and explain something well, I'm good at explaining things. There you go. I fit the role in the times that I do. You see what I mean? But in my daily life, I normally don't say that much around people, usually not at all. A lot of that is for a lot of reasons. But I have people often, just telling me so much about something, and I actually know more than them about it. And, this is kind of like a silly thing where people who are like backyard mechanics, working on vehicles, cars, they probably know more than somebody at like an auto parts store, right? Like a store that sells parts for cars. And maybe this person at the store, they know a little bit, but they're, mostly just there to sell the parts. And then this like backyard mechanic person goes in there to just purchase a part, and they don't really even need help knowing what they need. Maybe they could get help finding it because they don't know where everything is in this person's store, maybe they ask for help, but they don't actually need to be explained anything about the thing because they actually know more than the people working there about it. But then the people working there kind of talk to them as if like they're explaining it to them for the first time. Like, you probably don't know anything about this, so let me tell you how it works. And then, this is kind of how I am in my life, is what I mean, is things that I know so much about. If somebody else starts speaking about it to me, a lot of times I'll just be like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I'll just kind of like let them tell me how it is, And what you don't know is that I know more about this subject than you do. And what comes a lot of the time is I kind of like catch people being very judgmental. Because I'm so quiet usually, a lot of people might just take out that word might. A lot of people really think that I just don't know very much, that I'm not very smart, that I don't got so much going on in my brain as far as like IQ, right? Intelligence. Like a lot of people don't think that I'm very smart if they're being judgmental toward me and if they're speaking out of what they don't know. And so they judge me quick. I mean, I have this happen all the time. And it's no kind of comparison, but again, it's a gift from God, smarts, intelligence, ability to learn quick, having an inquisitive mind, asking so many questions and deeply thinking. And this is the kind of personality that God gave me. It's not even something I could take credit for, but it is something that is definitely unique. And a lot of people aren't as, yikes, right? Don't hear this incorrect, but a lot of people aren't as smart as me. Okay. There's a lot of people that are a lot more blank, whatever you could insert, than I am, right? A lot of things that I could work on or just don't have strengths in and will never be as good at as somebody else, they're just naturally better at than me because God gives us our individual gifts. And so what you don't know, not that I'm trying to put all the focus on myself necessarily in this hypothetical, of whoever could be looking at me thinking I don't know something, trying to tell me how it is when I actually know more about it than them and I just don't really open my mouth very much. But anybody who that's the case for, what you don't know is they actually know more than you, and they're just kind of not there to prove a point, but they'll let you speak, And so this happens a lot in my life is what you don't know. Anybody who's judging me in any way is who I really am. If you don't know who I really am. And that's it. That's what I mean by it gets us in trouble, Judgments out of ignorance when we're not trying to be mean, but what it is assumptions where we just assume or jump to a conclusion, y'all living in delusions, moving in directions where you jump into conclusions, rapid hopping out the door and sore in your legs, trying to say that you know what's going on, but you don't know what's going on the lawn. Now you're sitting there a little bit wary of where you've been going. Sowing seeds, you need some things to help those knees. Contra Malaysia Patella. Talk about jumping to conclusions. So y'all been doing sometimes. That's what I mean, is when you don't know, right? What you don't know is that you're judging someone when you didn't even realize you were judging them. Anyway, that was just a freestyle that I did right then. Just, I like that idea of like, you jump into conclusions so quick, you're going out the door and you don't even know it. Next thing you know, you're gone, running off to something else when someone yelled the truth and you thought that you had to get to that place before them, and they already knew it beforehand. And now you got a backhand that you got to get back, man. Back in the can. You're backing yourself up, trying to take your words back. You realize that you acted in a way that you said some things that were kind of mean to these people, and it seems like you wish you didn't say it. but you can't take back what you said. That's why I say, condemn me for what I have said, because I've done this and I do this where I do. I make judgments and assumptions where I do. I'm a human being, dude. I'm just as human as anybody else. But the big thing is, we don't know what we don't know. We can't be held accountable. But it gets us in trouble. It sure does. Oh, big time, Because then we're like kicking ourselves later or getting after ourselves, right? The episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, Our Own Worst Enemy is the title of it. Where, we beat ourselves up for what we've done. It's like, what I didn't know, I could be saying, is who you really were. And I judged you without even realizing, as another one of those things that I didn't even know that I was doing. And now I wish I could take it back. It's like, shoot, man. That's why I say we don't need to wish for things, because things are just what they are. But if we can be a little bit patient and understand that things take time, it takes time in life. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't know is it takes time to learn who somebody really is. It just does. You can't learn who somebody is overnight. It's like I was saying, you can't learn anything quicker than you can learn it. You can't experience something quicker than you can experience it. And you don't know the fullness of who somebody is enough to even really know all that much about them unless you have enough time with them to really see them in different, aspects and angles. John Mayer, he's got a song titled New Light. It's something about, he sees someone in a new light. I don't know who it's directed toward, but anyway, that's the whole thing about, you see things in different lights. As far as you see something in the daytime and you can see it for what it is there, but it takes time. And maybe you don't know it, but it looks entirely different when the sun goes down. It's a new light. You've got a different view on this just because of a certain situation or time that just has to happen. It's not something that you can rush. It's not something that you can, get to before it does happen. You see what I mean? You're somewhere and you're like, oh, this place is awesome. It seems so nice and warm here. I'll be fine tonight if it's this warm in the day. And what you don't know is deserts. Hypothetically, let's say, like just for the sake of the title, what you don't know, the contrast is bigger in a desert than most other places where, here in Utah, it's like, well, yeah, it could be really, really warm in the daytime. And at night you could like literally freeze. Right? But if you just don't know that there's a contrast from day to night because you haven't done John Mayer's song title, right, and seen something in a new light, you're in the exact same location, but in the daytime it's very warm, and then at nighttime it's freezing. This is how it is with human beings and our judgments that we can have toward them, jumping to conclusions on who people really are. And what we didn't know is maybe the first time I met this person, they just weren't having that great of a day. And I thought that's just who they were. Well, maybe you don't. No. That's a way that they just about never act, but it was like one of the hardest days of their life. And it doesn't have to just be a day, but people go through phases. Like me, when I took my records out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, voluntarily for 13 months, and then got rebaptized when I got back into my right mind. I got humbled and brought back by God, truly. During those 13 months, that little hiatus period, I wasn't myself, and I've referenced that episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast just a day or two ago in one of these more recent ones, but titled I Feel Like Myself Again, which I filmed right after I got rebaptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And when I wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, if you met me in that time, it's like, who right? Nobody knew who I was really, because I didn't know who I was. And what you didn't know is that was not me, if you didn't know. And so people who met me in that time, for example, or people who just saw me in that time, maybe thought that just something crazy happened in my life and I had changed to being that for eternity. What you don't know is that I was just going through something. But maybe you just don't know that people go through something. Because a lot of people in life, they just are basically the exact same robotic state of human being all the time. And that's what I mean. I talk about the dynamic of a human being. And what you maybe don't know is that there's a dynamic to a human being. We live in a modern man-made world, right? You've heard this if you heard this under In the Image Clothing Company content. The man-made world placed onto God's natural earth. And here what we've got is a lot of people who are very robotic because we don't know how else to be. We try to fit into what people tell us is the social norm, and then other people tell us that we're not normal. And what you may not know, right? What you don't know, let's say hypothetically, is that it's okay to be authentic. And not only is it okay, but that's the only way we'll ever be content and feel all right at all in life. Yikes, I'm rhyming. Because that's the big thing about it, is some of us really do live around people who are basically a robot. Or basically just so predictable. Even if they do have a good personality, it's like every time you see them, they might be the exact same thing. Just about, you know what I mean? Very predictable. And what you may not know is that there's some people who, just because we're all unique and individuals, are just so different from day to day, experience to experience, situation to situation, around certain people versus around other people. They could have an entirely almost different personality while still being the same human being, just because there's so many sides to them. And I'm a very complex person. And a lot of people, again, going along with the title, what you don't know is that there's people like this out there. And a lot of times these are those artists and these are those, philosophers, and these are those really deep thinkers and, well, entrepreneurs, like me. But if you've only been around the people that you've been around, then you maybe just don't know that there's other kinds of people out there. And so then you maybe just make judgments on who people are because you don't understand them. And all right, cool, But that's on you, and that comes back to bite you. But again, it's something you can't even be held accountable for. Because if you didn't know, you didn't know. But that doesn't mean that the consequences don't come still. I'd love to reference who wrote this song, but it's okay if I don't. It's a hymn within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We sing it, and it goes, "Do what is right, let the consequence follow." And that's how it is. That's what it really means to not know what you don't know, but you can't be held accountable for it, right? It's you don't know what you don't know, but that doesn't mean that there's not consequences if you do something out of ignorance. Again, just the lack of knowledge of something. Because you still made a choice, or you said something, or you did something without knowing. And, again, God is like I say, right, mathematics. God is gravity. God is the sun and physics and, these universal laws. God is apart from all of us. God is the truth, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And God is that universal law of every action has an equal and opposite reaction, or however it's exactly worded, right? But that's like a scientifical or a physics ifical. I just want to make it silly because it's just a universal thing, is what I'm saying. And so regardless, if you don't know something, you can't be held accountable for what you've done. But there's still consequences. There's still rebounds. There's still stuff that comes from it, even if you didn't mean to do anything mean. You still did something that was probably received mean. So this is a big part of what I say as well when I say, I don't mean to offend anybody, but on anybody's end, they can get offended from anything I ever do or say, and that's your choice. But if you don't know, and what you may not know, is that it's our choice to receive things from people. I remember, and I've said this, growing up, I used to think that everybody was attacking me when they said something that I didn't like. But no, people are just different in life. And that's what I mean is what you may not know is that people are just different. And so somebody can be so loud. I mean, like me, I'm so boisterous and loud, and I just have a full resonant voice. And what you may not know is that I'm not being mean when I'm speaking at this high level volume towards somebody, toward you, whoever, could be listening on the receiving end. It's like, what you don't know is I'm not being mean to you. I'm just loud. And that's the whole thing about it is what you don't know is we choose what we receive, you know? People aren't after us and out to get us if they're not after us and out to get us. But a lot of times we just look at things and see it from what we have experienced in the past and what we do know. And the things that we don't know, we don't really know how to deal with. We don't know how to receive. We don't know how to absorb. And then sometimes they bounce off of us. You see what I mean? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Like it's just kind of, I want to mock it out of a scientific way, but I want to say that, that's what it is it's a universal truth. It's God, so just the context of how to understand that. I'm not trying to preach a science class, but truth is truth. That's what I'm saying. Is what you don't know is that there's things you don't know in life. Yeah. That's the case for some people. Some people think they really know how life is in just about every sense. And what you don't know is any village, government, community, continent, race, religion, organization, anything like this in life that you've never been a part of, and how it works. That's what you don't know. And you can walk in there and you can do some really, really, really terribly wrong things for where you are. Maybe you just don't even know, And that's the whole thing is you can't be held accountable. But at the same time, it's like maybe you're speaking how I am now, very loud and boisterous within, I think boisterous is the right word, but, very, very yeah, loud. But maybe you're within a sacrament meeting in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is a very reverent, quiet meeting. But if you don't know that you're supposed to be reverent and quiet, you walk in there doing things opposing how, we're trying to have it be nice and, peaceful, then you can't be held accountable. But also you're still really disturbing the peace. You see what I mean? This is the whole thing about it is what you don't know, well, isn't your fault, but does come with consequences. And so it's like, this kind of puts us in that place with the human condition, where always trying to be better than we are, always messing up, trying to figure out why we can't be perfect, and we just can't be perfect. I mean, like, it's the human condition, right? The whole thing about it being sinful by nature. The natural man is an enemy to God forever and ever and always will be unless he yields and entices himself. Oh my gosh. This is awesome. That's why I'm kind of flying through it. And it might cut storage space-wise. I don't know for sure, how long I have, but unless he yields to the enticings of the Holy Spirit of God. The natural man is an enemy to God. And so it's the whole human condition is what you don't know. Well, some people word it like this, what they don't know can't hurt them. Well, kind of. Sometimes it's like you're going into something and you need some context and some knowledge and understanding of what you're about to do because you're doing a specific thing you wouldn't otherwise be doing, and nobody really told you much about it. Well, then you can be hurt. You know what I mean? You walk into like an alligator enclosure, and if you know what to do to interact with the alligator, you'll probably be fine. But what you don't know can actually get you killed very easily, right? And so this is kind of like a slap in the face to that phrase that people say, what they don't know won't hurt them. That is entirely false. The truth is, what you don't know, you can't be held accountable for, but huge, major, extreme, life-altering, life-ending, life-changing, consequences can come. So there's a lot of context that has to come with life. This is what I mean, That's what I say. That's what I said earlier about when, anytime I do say something like, I am very smart, I'm not saying that for any other reason, but to just speak on it as it is because I'm here for a reason. That's what I mean is what you don't know is what's past the intros. If you enter an In the Image Clothing Company podcast episode or any video on In the Image Clothing Company where the intro is like 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes long sometimes, no joke. But then after that, there's a discussion where I get really in depth with things. But if you cut it off, before the intro's over and you exit the thing, what you don't know is what's on the other side of the intro. Some deep discussion. That's what I was saying about it just takes time. Certain things in life, and that's it. There's no other way around certain things besides time. As a human being, it's the human condition, governed by time on this earth. The sun and the moon, that's what they do. The earth spins, it goes around the sun, and there you go. That's how we know what 24 hours means. There's the sun again. It's set 24 hours ago, and now it's setting right now, 24 hours after. That's what a day is. We didn't decide it. We just looked at the sun and it takes this long for it to happen, Oh, shoot. Anyway, the point is, I think that's where we'll leave this. I kind of feel like it's time to wrap it up. So there's a lot to this, man. But anyway, just don't judge things before you know much about them. But also sometimes it's just unavoidable because we're human beings, and that's just, it takes time. And you may not know that. It's not your fault. So anyway, today's the 15th of October, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. This is In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 169, titled What You Don't Know. So, stick around for the poodles, man. We do a lot of beautiful stuff. It applies to all human beings on the face of the earth forever. I mean, we don't say anything perfect, but we try to gear all that we do around truth that's unchanging and eternal and universal. And, dog information as well. Besides things that are very specific to poodles, our information on dogs applies to all dogs across the earth. Keeping dogs healthy and, a lot of things with that. So, thank you. Goodbye.